Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the Engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
Interstate Batteries has been a proud supporter of the Sportsman's Nation since day one. With over 200,000 locations throughout the U.S. and offering 12,000 different types of batteries, stop into your local Interstate Battery store today and let them help you find the right batteries for your everyday life.
My name is Clay Newcomb, and I'm the host of the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast. I'll also be your host into the world of hunting the icon of North American wilderness, the bear. We'll talk about tactics, gear, conservation, but we'll also bring you into some of the wildest country on the planet chasing bear. On this episode, we're in Cody, Wyoming, at the office of Joe Kondelis, the founder of the Western Bear Foundation. We have an intriguing conversation about why bears are amazing critters, the history of bears in the West. Also, we talk a lot about grizzly bear conflict and mitigation that's going on right now in the very complex issues of the grizzly bear world in the West. And hey, check out the Western Bear Foundation. These guys are doing a lot out west. And hey, if somebody doesn't stand up and say that as big predator managers and hunters and people that utilize the wildlife-related commodities of big predators, if somebody doesn't speak up for us, then nobody's going to. And the anti-hunting community is going to have the first rights to the narrative of big game hunting and specifically large predator hunting. People like Joe Kondelis and the Western Bear Foundation are putting action into our narrative of why we're the good guys, why we care about wildlife, and why that we want to continue on with the ancient and honorable tradition of hunting large predators and managing the landscape for the betterment of all wildlife, all at the same time of us enjoying hunting and loving the challenge of it, and taking some satisfaction in getting to hunt big predators. You're going to enjoy this podcast. Welcome to the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast. We are again in Cody, Wyoming. Colby and I are heading back from our Montana hunt, and I just met a guy for the first time that I feel like I've known for a long time.
That's
because
a true
we have.
Statement. Yes, it is bizarre that we've never met face to face.
Yeah,
I feel like you can develop relationships over phone and email that are almost like you've known each other for 20 years and never met.
Exactly. So that's what's happening today. I've got Joe Kondelis with me, or we're in his office here.
Yeah.
Cody. Yeah. And so I'll give a introduction to you just a little bit, but then I'm going to hand over to you to give a better introduction. But Joe is the founder of the Western Bear Foundation. Is that an accurate statement?
Yep.
So that's part of what this podcast is going to be. We're going to hear about the Western Bear Foundation. I want Joe to go into detail of the grizzly situation. I mean, we are at the heartthrob place for all this controversy about grizzly bears.
You're sitting about 50 miles from the park right here. Everything that's grizzly bear related that is basically stemmed out of this range right here. You're in the hub.
I'm in the hub. Yeah. So this is like the hot topic of our time right now for large predator management, and it's such a complex issue. And so I want to hear from you because your foundation is doing so much inside of that. But before we do that, tell me. So I met you years ago when I had started the Arkansas Black Bear Association. Yeah. That's when I contacted you.
A long time ago.
Yeah, like probably 2011 or something. Yeah. Now, when did the Western Bear Foundation start?
Officially, we got our 501c3 status in it was in 2010, but we kind of were loosely trying to build this thing up to where we were federally in 07, 06, 07.
Well, okay, so but in 10 and 11, that's what I remember messaging you on Facebook because I saw, hey, this guy's starting a bear association out west, and I was doing a similar kind of thing in Arkansas at the time, and so I remember reaching out to you, and it probably wasn't. It was sometime later that we really connected more when I got into Bear Hunting Magazine,
for sure.
But just for information's sake, members of the Western Bear Foundation receive a copy of Bear Hunting Magazine.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of our membership. Like, people want something. You know, they want to support a great cause, but they also want something in return. And I mean, we're a bear hunting organization, conservation and hunting, but what a better thing to offer them. Like, we can't afford to put out a publication. We don't know what we're doing when it comes to that. So it was just like, reached out to Clay right away and was like, hey, would you guys be interested in doing this? And so basically, Bear Hunting Magazine is our subscription that our members get. You know, so it's a huge value for them.
Yeah, right on. Well, it's been a great relationship for us, and so to get into, well, let me even take it a further step back. Tell me about your. I mean, you're a businessman here. You're a hunter.
Yeah.
What was your intrigue with bears that hooked you into this?
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy story, but I grew up hunting in southwest Montana, grew up in Butte, family of hunters. My grandpa came over he was in Minnesota and moved, his whole family grew up there and they moved out to Montana and my dad grew up hunting and everyone grew up hunting, but no one in our family was really bear hunters. They were strictly, at that time, my grandpa was subsistence hunting. They needed the meat.
Hunting deer and elk.
Yep, just for food on the table. And my dad, kind of really, I grew up, at a young age being out with my dad, but we never really bear hunted much. And I just kind of went through the motions through, junior high and high school, going out deer hunting, elk hunting, and just always thought, man, it'd be really cool to get a bear one day. Well, at that time, in the early 90s in southwest Montana at least, I would say bear hunting hadn't really taken on the space that it is now. Yeah. It's a lot more popular.
Yeah.
So there was very few people that did it well. And so it was just kind of an unknown thing. And we were in high school, and me and the guy that I actually co-founded this organization with, Joe Cambick, we always wanted to kill a bear. We wanted to figure it out. And we didn't know what we were doing. We could drive now. So we would putz around the hills in the spring and the early summer, because it ended June 15th where we grew up. Yeah. Trying to find bears and didn't have a clue. Just hunting bears like we would elk hunt, park on a ridge and go. And
park on a ridge and bugle at them?
Yeah.
It didn't work, did it?
We couldn't find bears to save our life, and just didn't really know anyone to show us around. And this is a long story short, but we were together, and he got his first bear in, mid-90s. I can't remember. We were just out of high school, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so it kind of became a quest. He's a little bit older than me, so he got to get first shot.
Yeah.
So then it became a quest for me to get one, and we're still pretty new, and I finally got one in that day.
What year was that?
97 maybe?
Okay.
98, 97, 98?
Okay.
I think. Maybe later. Gosh, I'd have to look. That changed me as far as, like, I actually shot one, then never found it. I shot 2 bears before and didn't recover them. And it was just devastating to me. You know, like, I'm not going to figure this out. And then when I ended up finally harvesting one, it was actually in early 2000, I ended up harvesting one beautiful chocolate bear in a place where I grew up in southwest Montana hunting deer and elk. And it was just a pristine high mountain meadow. Hiked in there, and that thing was just out in the middle chowing down on these white flowers, and it was just like that was meant to be, and the color that I always wanted. And from that day on, I just have been fascinated by not hunting them. It's the knowledge of bears that I feel like has driven me to the point where I'm at now. It's like no one, a lot of people really don't understand a lot about bears.
Right.
So I started just diving into it, and the more I started looking and trying to teach myself about bears' habits, biology, just the total ecology of everything surrounding bears, I kind of was like, man, there's just really not a lot of information out there aside from other hunters.
Right.
And a lot of bear hunters are not, in this part of the country, I don't know about where you guys are at, but they're not very good at sharing information because their bear spots are like, that's gold. Yeah. That's sacred. Yeah. So I thought, man, we kind of would be nice if there was a group out there to help people out that was in my same shoes, not having a clue. And then also, there just wasn't a group out there really focused on bears. And we had talked about it for years, Joe and I joking, God, wouldn't that be cool if there was a bear found, something for bears and bear hunters out west. Yeah. Did some research. I'm like, gosh, Michigan's got a strong one. Wisconsin, there's strong groups. West Virginia, and we're like, we could do something like that. But man, I'm a business student, and he's a game warden, so we're like, I don't know how to put something like this together, and it just ate away at me. I moved down here in 2005, down into Cody for work, and it was just still driving me crazy. And then when I moved here, it propelled me even further because now I'm on the grizzly bear scene.
You're
down
right
here,
in the middle of it.
Right in the middle, and I'm just seeing, man, there's no work done for black bears. Everyone knows if a grizzly bear takes a crap anywhere from the west coast to here, we know. But we couldn't tell you. I mean, the state of Wyoming and Idaho hardly know how many bears are in their state.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's not right for black bears.
Yeah.
So
let me stop you right there to go back to something you said that ties into that. Is that you made a statement that generally people don't really know that much about bears.
They don't.
And that's true. And the outdoor media revolution of the last, let's say, 25 years since outdoor television came on, people started learning about whitetails, learning about elk. I mean, the average whitetail hunter can tell you more about the biology and habits of a whitetail deer than probably an expert whitetail hunter could have in the 1960s.
That's a
true
you
know what I'm saying? I mean, just the average guy, like my 10-year-old son, probably knows more like head knowledge about whitetail deer than an expert hunter in 1960. I mean, just like information.
We have so much more information.
And that's exactly what I found, and was the reason that we did what we did. Was I was in Arkansas, and it was like nobody cared about bears. Nobody knew about bears, and it's funny to hear you tell your story because it's just like mine. I was just like, I killed a bear, massively intrigued by it.
Yeah.
And Joe, the first bear I killed was in 2001.
Yeah.
And I've been a whitetail hunter, and when I walked up to that bear, I realized that I knew nothing about it.
It's crazy.
I mean, it was just this magnificent animal.
Yeah.
Incredible animal. And I realized that I knew nothing about it.
Yep.
And that the hunt to me felt hollow.
Yeah.
That's the way I described it. I was 21 years old, and I was just like, this. I mean, it wasn't like I did something wrong, but I was like, this isn't right. I need to learn about this animal. And that set me on a quest to learn everything I could about black bear. And they're an incredibly unique animal. The biological strategies they use are crazy. Just all this stuff. But anyway, so
and it's true. I'm overly biased because to me they're the most fascinating animal on the planet. Bears in general, their willingness to adapt to any environment. I was very similar when I shot that bear. It had taken me multiple years to finally put my hands on my bear, and I think it was like that whole struggle and not knowing and like slowly learning that was really just like. I mean, when I shot my first elk, it wasn't like that big of a struggle or deer. It was just like, wow, this is a big deal. It was monumental for me, and just like wanting to know so much more and not having information because like there wasn't a lot of that stuff out there. Social media and the hunting television was not like it is today, to where you can even learn. And then just like you said, no one cared about bears. I mean, until not that long ago in Wyoming, you got a bear with your elk, you got a bear tag with your elk tag, and they're like, kill them.
Yeah.
They didn't have any respect for them. They just thought they were a predator. And to me, that's tragic. Like we do so much, and it's right. We do so much for ungulates in the West, and we need to. But there's a whole nother piece to the equation in black bears that just get left out, and that made me sick to my stomach for so many years. And I just saw it one day, and I'll never forget the time, and I was like, screw it, I'm doing it. I was just like, it ate away at me for so long, thinking, I feel like I have to do this just to be, like, in 10 years, if it doesn't work out, I tried. You know, like, and
give it a shot.
Just for me personally, like, give it a shot. And I was standing in the shower one day, and I was just like, to hell with it, we're doing it. And I called him and tried to come up with the name. At that time, we were the Yellowstone Country Bear Hunters Association, which didn't really give us much arena other than around Yellowstone Park. But at that time, we thought that was the right way to go. But, fast forward to now, we're the Western Bear Foundation, doing everything we can in the West. So it was a long slog up to that. But I think being like you, being around them and just being fascinated, you find a passion point in life sometimes that you're just like, you never knew you were going to have. Like 5 years before doing that hunt and shooting that bear, I never in a million years thought I'd be here today talking to you about a foundation and your magazine and what you did with the Arkansas Black Bear Foundation. It's beyond me, but sometimes in life things like that happen, and I was like, we got to do something. And it's been incredibly successful, slow, and I'm an impatient guy. Like, I want everything to be like now, and so that's been a struggle for me. We're all volunteers, so that's a struggle too.
Right.
A lot of work on the volunteers, and you can only grow as fast as your, money is a big thing, when it comes to these foundations. It's all money. So, we're doing the best we can, but
now I know that you have dealt with and asked questions to some of these bigger foundations. I mean, you've tried to model this. I mean, give me the architecture of the Western Bear Foundation, and kind of even just as simple as what your mission is, some of the things you're doing.
Yeah. So we tried to, not knowing anything about running a foundation or an organization, a nonprofit, we had to look at the ones that were successful. And the biggest one to us in the West was Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. You look at what they did, and similar thing. A bunch of guys got together that are super passionate about elk, and they created something that's a monster now. And it's done so much good for elk in the country. So we're like, well, let's model it similar to that. We'll be membership driven to raise funds to do projects on the ground.
Yeah.
Initially, when we started, Joe and I said that in order to ensure that we're doing it for the right reasons, no one's getting paid for this.
Yeah.
So for us, that was really important in the beginning, because and not every group's like this, but when money starts changing hands, people start doing things sometimes for the wrong reasons. And for us, it had to be about the bears and bear hunters. So we always said, no one's going to get paid for this. Now we're getting to a point where we might have to do something like that and change a little bit. But so we tried to do it like the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, where we had a board, and we don't really have chapters, but we thought, that would be somewhere where we'd want to go. And initially we were just going to focus on Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming, because that's where a lot of the grizzly bear issues were, and the largest amount of black bears, in the West in these three states. So we thought we'd stay there. And, over the years, as we went to Western Bear Foundation, now we're doing work, and our actual first chapter is going to be formed in Washington State.
Really?
Believe it or not. Yeah, we got a guy over there and some really passionate hunters over there that want to start a chapter. They're writing all the bylaws right now.
Right on.
Nice. So we'll have our first chapter in Washington State, and I think it's just going to make it a lot easier for us to have a Montana chapter, an Idaho chapter, because right now I kind of manage the three with people in each state to help me out. Like, hey, what can we get to this? Can we do this? And working closely with the state agencies that manage our bears and manage our hunting seasons, we do a lot of that. But a lot of that falls on me right now. So divvying these up into chapters will take a lot off of me and make it a little bit easier for me to do some of the administrative stuff that takes up a lot of time. You know, so that's kind of how we're set up now. We do have memberships. Most of our money raised is through like raffles and grants. I'll write grants for projects on the ground, and that's what we're really probably the most proud about right now is the grant work and the projects we're doing on the ground. I mean, for being small, this year we'll do over $30,000 for projects on the ground. Okay. And that's all just fundraising.
What's an example of a project, Joe?
One of what we've done in the past a lot of is conflict mitigation. So we do in the state of Wyoming, we've done a lot of bear boxes, and you'll see them on the national forest in Wyoming, and especially where we have grizzly bear use, we have to have boxes, bear-proof storage containers in campsites.
Okay.
So it keeps bears out of food. It mitigates habituation to human foods, and then it keeps bears out of trouble. And our motto has always been, the more bears we keep on the landscape, that's more for hunters, photographers, just anyone to enjoy. Yeah. We don't want to see bears getting taken out, management actions because they're habituated to food or they're causing problems. That's one less for us to enjoy.
What's the mission statement of the Western Bear Foundation?
To protect and develop bears and bear hunting in the Western United States.
Okay.
Yeah. In short,
Yeah.
So we've kind of went from being super focused on hunting rights, like initially on, we're like, we got to make sure we have our rights as hunters, and we're still really focused on that. Like, we're doing a lot of work, especially in the last year with this bear bait ban. But what we've done the most lately is conflict mitigation, stuff on the ground to ensure a future for bears in the West and keeping bears out of trouble. So we do the bear boxes. Up in Montana, we've been doing a lot of bear fences on the Rocky Mountain front. And those fences are electrified fences that go around chicken coops, lambing pens, any of that. That keeps the grizzly bears out.
Wow. Man, that's a prime example of hunters truly showing the intent of why we do what we do. Mm-hmm. It's not just to go out and kill all the bears. We want animals on the landscape.
That's been so important to us to be a hunting group doing these projects, because right now in Montana we have a few anti-hunting groups funding a lot of these projects, and to us there's a hunting group now that can do that. Now granted, we don't have the money that some of these groups are. I won't name names, but we're slowly breaking into that, where it's like, hey, we can buy the bear-proof garbage cans for the Anaconda Township in Montana. They got a lot of bears. Like, maybe we can do that now. And rather than it be an anti-hunting group, now we have a pro sportsman, a hook and bullet club buying these dumpsters. And so
that's real cool. So much of what we're doing now, Joe, inside the outdoor industry, it seems, is that we are doing a better job at showing the intent of conservation-based hunting.
Yes.
Because the narrative for the anti-hunting community is that we're just bloodthirsty guys that want to go shoot stuff with our guns.
Yep.
And so I really like what you're doing, because it's on the ground, actually doing the work, showing people that, hey, we are trying to reduce bear conflicts so that these bears don't have to be euthanized when they come into this camp.
It's exactly like what we thought.
It's a philosophical position that I like.
Mm-hmm. I think what we're trying to do too is make it that bear hunters, and I don't have to tell you this, are very much maligned in the United States when it comes to all hunters in general. I think predator hunters get the worst rap,
the bottom of the
aside
barrel
from trappers, and they've got a really bad rap, which we support trapping and everything, but it's an effort too to try and change the way people look at bear hunters. And if they look at a group like the Western Bear Foundation that's out here, and it's like, well, they are a hunting-based group, but gosh, this year we're spending $20,000 on collars in the state of Wyoming to put on black bears so we can do a population study. There's not been another group that's anti-hunting or anything that's even approached the department and said, we want to do this. This is a hunting group that's doing it. It's hunters that are doing this.
Yeah.
And that's to benefit everyone. And, we might not agree with some anti-hunters, but we're going to put more bears out there so you can go take pictures or you can just walk around and enjoy it, and that's important to us. We got to manage for sustainability.
What's wild, we were just talking with Jim Sessions over here, and he was talking about, and maybe you could add to this, about how many bears right now. He said this morning driving from his house, he saw 2 game and fish trucks with bear traps.
Yep.
And they're going to somebody's house that has a bear problem.
Yep.
They're going to catch that bear, and there's a certain point when these bears have to be put down.
Yeah.
And so it's like, just in theory, we could say maybe and you may know the exact numbers, but let's just say there's X number of bears being euthanized by government officials because these bears get in trouble.
Yep.
I mean, are we saying as sportsmen, hey, why don't we have a managed hunt?
Yep.
18 bear quota, a female quota. I mean, just something so minuscule that it would have basically it would have zero net effect on the population. Truly,
it's true.
But a hunted population of animals acts so much differently. And you tell me,
oh yeah,
they act so much differently than an unhunted group of animals. Anyway, I guess what we're saying is, hey, let sportsmen take these 20 bears a year out that have to be taken out. It's going to generate funds. It's all these positive things that are going to happen.
We'll pay to manage the resource, and it's been a really crazy 5 or 6 years with this grizzly bear deal, because we went from having them delisted, and I think it was 2009, and they got the court ruling, put them back on the list. The
Hey, give us just for somebody that knows nothing of this.
Yeah.
And some people back east that listen to this podcast don't.
Yeah.
So the grizzly bear in the lower 48
in
the United States was on the endangered species list.
Yes.
If it's on the endangered species list, it cannot be hunted.
It cannot be hunted.
There's qualifications for what an animal, biological qualifications that indicate whether an animal should be on that list. When those qualifications, like when a certain number or recovery, quote unquote, is established, then that animal can be taken off of the endangered species list. All endangered species are managed by the federal government.
That's correct.
But when they're off the endangered species list, they could be managed at a state level. Essentially what would happen is if the grizzly bear in the lower 48 were taken off the endangered species list, they could be managed by Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. And these states manage through hunting, basically. Yep. And so then these bears could be hunted. That's like the super condensed version for somebody that knows nothing about this.
Yeah, and it's what we've really tried to shoot for is state management, right? Because the people that have recovered the bear are primarily state agency people.
Right.
They're the biologists, and Wyoming was tasked with managing their bears under the federal government. We receive a very small amount of money, but upwards to the tune of $40 million that was spent out of Wyoming's budget to manage these things. We spent the majority of the money to bring the bears back from the brink. We've got one of the best staffs as far as conflict mitigation. We've got a recovery team. We got guys out there every day that are doing grizzly bear stuff. Right. And so does Montana and so does Idaho. So we funded this recovery, and now the time comes to delist them and put them into state control, and we're like, let's let the people that know this bear the most manage this bear.
Tell us what's good for the whole population.
Yep. And, just this recent ruling by Judge Christensen to basically, he said, you cannot delist a distinct population, which we tried to delist, well, we being the Interagency Grizzly Bear Committee, who is oversees the recovery of the grizzly bear. They tried to delist just the greater Yellowstone bear.
Okay.
Not the Bob Marshall, not the Northern Continental Divide ecosystem, and not the Selway.
That's up in Montana.
That's up in Montana. So we have several distinct populations.
Greater Yellowstone ecosystem would include Wyoming, parts of southwest Montana, and parts of southeast Idaho.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And so they tried to just delist that, and the judge says, amongst a few other things, he said, you can't do that because we don't know what effect that's going to have on the other populations. And they said, well, they proved everything basically in their paper that said there is no issue with genetic diversity, and there it's. Okay. I mean, this is a scientific thing, and he had a couple other things saying that you're not using the most available science to count these things, and so we're back on the list, and the states are funding this recovery continually. Why sportsmen are paying for that through tax dollars, through license dollars, but yet everyone else gets to enjoy the bear. You get to take pictures of it, sell those photos.
But we can't kill 20 bears a year.
Which we killed double what the quota was going to be just in management actions.
See, okay, that's what I want to talk about. That's the point I was making earlier.
Yep.
Is that so? How many we're killing? 40 bears a year?
It was over that. It was around.
Okay, so they're euthanizing. We're paying government people to go out and trap these bears, trouble bears, and I'm sure they're doing the absolute best they can to not euthanize them. So I'm not saying they're, but those animals could have been I mean, it wouldn't be those specific animals, but basically hunters would go into wherever they can hunt, kill bears. They would open up more space for these bears that are getting in trouble because they're leaving habitat, going into more fringe habitat, coming into the city. And so it's like if you take out some of the bears in the core area, it's going to make room for these bears that are now on the fringes. What Jim told us is he said we're seeing grizzly bears here in habitat that they haven't been.
No.
So it's like the core population of bears is expanding quite rapidly, would you say?
And a great analogy that I heard him say many, many times is the bucket is full.
Yeah.
We can only house so many grizzly bears in Yellowstone Park and the surrounding area. And now as we're, as feed, as ungulates, as what they eat moves out of Yellowstone, so do the predators. And now we have so many bears residing outside the park because there's better habitat for them. Now we're starting to see this bucket's full mentality, and when the bucket's full, they got to move because dominant boars aren't going to live in the same range.
Yeah,
they're going to either kill each other, or a young boar's got to move out, stake his claim somewhere new, and we see that with sows and cubs moving out. Because boars will kill cubs. Yeah. And so they're like, hey, we're out of here. There's a dominant boar running around. We're going to get on we get them right here.
Really?
Right outside of town. I mean, there was a...
Could you take us... I'm not saying that we would do this. Could you take us this afternoon and show us a grizzly bear?
Yes.
For real?
We'd drive up the Norfolk. I would 80% guarantee we'd see one.
Wow. It's incredible.
And it's great. I love seeing them. But, we also have to manage that resource just like we manage everything else. The federal government gets it. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is on our side. A lot of people think they're not. They wanted them delisted. And we are not a group, and we get a lot of flack for this because we have been pro-delist for a long time. But we listen to the people that know what they're talking about. And when the Wyoming Game and Fish and the Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks and Idaho departments say, we're good. I mean, we can hunt a few of these bears. We have to listen to them because we're not scientists. They're the ones tasked with recovering it. And what we want to see as an organization is a sustainable population.
Yeah.
For 30 years down the road, we have grizzly bears out here in the West, a rugged, wild place that people can come see grizzly bears, but we can also, we can have a little bit of both. People can go hunt them, and there's a small quota, and we're shooting a few bears a year, but we're also managing for sustainability. And all the hunting seasons that the states put into place, because we had to have hunting seasons, we had to have it all documented, and we actually had draws and everything. In Wyoming, we had draws and people drew tags.
Yeah, people drew tags. They never got to hunt.
Drew tags. It basically, they said they could have went over that quota, but they did
probably
really,
put it as low as possible.
Really low, and they said, if we get to a level where too many bears have died throughout the year and we don't have enough in our threshold, we won't have a season. I'm like, what a better check and balance. We're good. We're not going to over-harvest this thing down to levels that it was when it got put on the endangered species list.
Yeah.
So the states were really good about it. I thought it was a win-win, but here we are today with no...
So what happened was that the grizzly bear was delisted, and this has actually happened multiple times.
Yeah.
It was officially delisted, and then anti-hunting groups sued the federal government.
Yeah, they appealed or sued U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And so then it went to a judge in Missoula, and Judge Christensen ruled in favor of them.
Let me ask you something about that. Maybe you can say something, maybe you can't. Do you feel like this guy was it a just decision?
To me, no. And I'm maybe a little biased. The guy had the lawsuit on his desk for months. We got to this deadline where the seasons were going to open in Wyoming. I think it was August 15th. These first guys were going to go out and hunt them. He didn't even, see the trial didn't even happen in Missoula until, that week. And then he said, I need more time.
So you think it was a political...
They filed an injunction to stop the hunt for 2 weeks.
I'm shaking my head. I want the listeners to know this.
So they filed an injunction. He said yes. So it stopped the hunt for 2 weeks. And then it took 2 more weeks for him to rule. And he finally said no. So now the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is appealing that in district court, which the district court that it's in, I heard, is not very favorable for us. So I think what we're in now is the same situation with, we're in litigation, which unfortunately – wildlife should never be managed in a court of.
I saw a statistic the other day, and I to be honest with you, I can't say if it was with wolves or with grizzlies, but it was a statistic that told the gazillions of dollars that the U.S. government has paid in litigation fees fighting these anti-hunting groups.
Yeah.
I mean, all it takes is for somebody to file a lawsuit and to have big money, which they do.
They do.
And they could tie this thing up in court for...
That's the end game for them.
Decades, or maybe forever.
And plus, they have that equal act of justice, which I'm sure you're familiar with, where these groups, if they sue and win, they recoup percentage of their attorney fees from the federal government. Mm-hmm. So we need to repeal. We need to get that out of there. But
it just seems so unjust. I mean, even if you were to just pull out of this planet and go to somewhere else where there was a fair and equal judgment system for human morals and ethics, and were to present this case, it would be...
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
And, a big thing that we've always said, that these organizations stay relevant with their population base, that their constituency, by lawsuits. That's how they stay relevant. Because if they're not fighting this, they can't raise money. That's how they raise money, is they're like, well, grizzly bears are a hot point, let's sue. We get that taken care of.
It's almost like they really don't even...
They don't care about the animal. Otherwise, they'd be out here with us putting collars on bears, trying to figure it out. They'd be putting fences up. They don't care, And we're the ones with no money trying to do all this stuff. And that's what's always been frustrating to us is when it comes time to come to the table and do something for bears, no one's to be found. But when it comes time to hunting, it's like everyone in the world has got an opinion. And none of them are doing anything other than suing. And it's just a publicity stunt for them because, it's grizzly bears. And when it's not grizzly bears, now it's bear baiting or
it's
cat hunting.
It's an incredibly easy sell to someone that has no context for conservation-based hunting of North America.
Exactly.
Which is every time I open my mouth, I say this, but the reason we have big game is because of hunters.
Yes.
I mean, we all know that, but I still don't think people really understand that fully. Well, even hunters don't understand that. But non-hunters, not at all.
Nope.
I mean, it's such an easy sell. It's such an easy sell to put up a billboard here.
We have one right down here.
Well, I know. I've seen your social media posts.
It drives me crazy. I drive by it twice a day.
That's incredible.
It's just, and a lot of it boils down to like as hunters, we're a consumptive user and we pay for the resource, and part of that money is back to wildlife management, whether it's to ensure hunting seasons or just to do some habitat work on a landscape for better elk habitat, but that's all consumptive money. That's money that hunters are spending, and we got the anti-hunters that basically don't pay a dime to manage to bring these populations to where everyone can enjoy. And as hunters, we're supposed to feel guilty about hunting. Right. It's like we're the ones that are bringing this resource back. We're managing it. And as hunters, we have to always defend ourselves.
I want to stop you right there. A lot of people would know this. A lot of hunters that are kind of in the know, especially if they listen to the Meat Eater podcast, they would know what we're saying when we say that hunters are paying for conservation. Mm-hmm. I referenced the Meat Eater podcast just because they've done some in-depth podcasts about the funding for conservation and whatnot. But what we're talking about is the Robertson-Pittman Act, which is an excise tax on hunting gear, firearms, and ammunition.
Yep.
So basically in the 1940s under... Roosevelt or somebody. It was Franklin.
FDR.
FDR. Yeah, that's what he's the one that signed it in, I believe. And basically, they said we're going to tax more on hunting and fishing gear and ammunition, firearms. That money is going to go into a big fund in the federal government that's going to be distributed to the states for wildlife conservation, for buying land, all this stuff. So that's what we mean when we say. And I think people have got to know that, Joe.
I agree.
That's so the guys in the. I bet if I polled the average Arkansas hunter that has a hunting license, not a guy that's really into it.
Just a guy that bought a tag, maybe going to go shoot.
He doesn't know that. He can't tell somebody that.
Nope.
So we have a lot of friends that are international that have no context for hunting, but they know our family and they know that I make a living in the hunting industry.
Yep.
And I've had very good conversations with people, and that's one of the first things I bring up is that we have paid for wildlife conservation. And boy, that rings a bell with people. It's like,
does.
So you guys are the only ones that,
Basically. When you look at, and Renella's talked about it, the big mounds of buffalo skulls back east, in the boneyards, and there was no wildlife on this landscape in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
And now we've hit epic populations of deer and elk, and deer always in the west, mule deer always in the eastern. We have more bears now than we ever have.
Yeah.
That's management.
And continental-wide black bear.
Yeah.
In this region, grizzly bear.
Grizzly bears, and that's all through management and hunting dollars, and we've managed to bring all these animals to record levels of populations, all while hunting them.
Absolutely.
All while hunting them.
Yeah.
So nothing, if we take out hunting, there might be a few more, but we know the consequences of that, disease and just, it's...
Wherever an animal has value, and this is an old drum that we beat because it's true, wherever an animal has cultural value, it will be protected.
It'll succeed.
And it gains cultural value and has for us, and it has worked through hunting. We value it. We want to be able to partake of the resource, so we protect it and just take a small little sliver of the population back so that we can have bear rugs and bear steaks.
One of the biggest things that we've said for a long time, and I heard this in one of a grizzly bear seminar, and public perception is probably the biggest point right now when it comes to recovery of an animal. And the public perception of the grizzly bear is poor. And I've said this for a long time. If you want to create advocates for grizzly bears, hunters are the best advocates, but we got to be able to hunt them. And if you let hunters, you'll start getting guys that are like, I'm the biggest grizzly bear passionate hunter. I'm like that guy. Just like I was with black bears.
I see
just like I was with black bears. Pretty soon you're going to have guys out there just like wolves that are like, all I care about is grizzly bears, and you can be damn sure that guy's going to make sure that grizzly bear is always on that landscape, and he's a hunter. And so you got to create those passion points.
And we've got 150 years of history to prove that that's true.
Yep.
It's not just a guess.
No, it's since the Native Americans run this landscape. They hunted them.
Yeah, well, and specifically what I'm talking about is Roosevelt and Grinnell and the guys that started the Boone and Crockett Club that introduced fair chase, and later that rolled into wildlife management.
The North American model of conservation.
They did that because they hunted them. They didn't do that because they like to take photos.
It's true. It's true.
You take a photo of a bear. I mean, I get it. There are people that are truly passionate about bears that all they take is photos. But, man, if you're a bear hunter, you're passionate about bears being there.
You are. You want them there. Yeah. And I think it all boils down to one other thing that we have a lot of trouble with in this state, which we're on the beginning stages of trying to do something about it, is, in Wyoming, you don't have to take the carcass.
Right.
Which, to me, just makes it so much easier to cause problems.
I hear you.
When you're talking to
even with black bear?
Black bear.
Is that right?
Yeah, and so, Montana, you do, as you know.
Yep.
Because you've hunted up there. You've got to take the carcass and everything. In Wyoming, you can leave the carcass. And so it really makes hunters in Wyoming, regardless if you leave it or not, black bear hunters look like trophy rug hunters exclusively.
I didn't realize
those are archaic laws that are not helping the image of hunters in the general eye, the public's eye, that we have to change. And we're not going to get that change done easily. And there's going to be a lot of hunters that are going to disagree with us. But, at the end of the day, we have to do something that's going to sustain our ability to hunt bears. And if we look like a bunch of rug-thirsty dudes out there hunting, that's not good for hunting in general. And the sport of hunting, and there's a common misconception about bear meat out here in the West. I've hunted the East, I've hunted Canada bears out there, and that's prized.
Yeah,
the fat and everything. And out here, it's like, what are you going to do with that? And I'm like, well, I'm going to eat it. We butcher all our own stuff, and it's important to us.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get that message out to other people, like, hey, and if you don't want it, bring it out, and we'll get someone that does. But that's something that I think needs to change out here, and that just lends to that. Hunters being this evil, trophy-driven species.
Right. And that is our biggest thing. And for what we've been trying to do at Bear Hunting Magazine is to change that perception. To tell a different story, to tell a story of the bear is a incredible animal for wildlife-related commodities. Mm-hmm. There's just all these uses that you can have for bear. And just telling a new story of who the bear hunter is.
Yes.
You know?
Well, and you guys have done a great job with that. Since you've got that and taken over, you can really see that publication is just, it's taken huge leaps into that respect of not just being grip and grin articles, but, really explaining what bear hunting is and biology and what to do with the meat and all that stuff. I mean, it's just been so good. And then the podcast and the movies, that the video, the films that you're shooting is all helping that out. And we needed that as bear hunters. We needed a group or someone that had the ability to put that message out there. Because a lot of times as bear hunters, and I've seen this, bear hunters tend to be a pretty quiet, like not very, out there group of people, because I think we're always defending what we do.
Right.
So we tend to just kind of sit in the back and like, don't bring it up because it's going to be a problem. And so now to have a group out there like you guys that are just really bringing a positive light to bear hunting.
Yeah. And, one of the things that is important to me is that, the reason that bears are the low-hanging fruit for the anti-hunting community and even hunters that misunderstand bear hunting is because of some of the tactics that we have to use to manage bears.
Yep.
Baiting bears and running hounds.
Yep.
Those two things, and this is a sad thing to me, is I think there's a lot of hunters today that don't understand the macro picture of the goals of the anti-hunting community that would say we should just give that to them.
Yep.
They would say, it's not important to me. It's such a small little fraction of our hunting. And it's kind of, there's not, there are plenty of other animals that we bait. That is totally ethical, totally
okay
fine.
To bait whitetail.
Oh, everybody in Arkansas bait whitetails.
Yeah.
People don't know how to quit. We quit deer hunting whitetail. We quit being hunters about 20 years ago when Walmart started selling corn in Arkansas. I'm joking about myself, but I mean it's true.
Yeah.
But point being, to bait a bear just seems so, to someone that doesn't understand, they misperceive that it's the difficulty of it. They think it's easy.
Yeah.
They misperceive the motivation. They misperceive the amount of work. They misperceive all this crazy stuff about it. But one thing that I am intently harping on is that the methodology that we use, that our game agencies who want animals to thrive have prescribed in the different regions of the country to hunt bears, are there for a purpose, for conservation-based reasons. In Arkansas, if all we had was spot and stalk hunting, there'd be 25 bears killed in the state of Arkansas every year. The bears we would have all kind of problems. We got to bait bears on private land in Arkansas to harvest the bears that we need.
You got to manage that resource. And those game and fish managers use baiting and they use hound hunting as a tool in their bucket to manage.
Right.
That's all it is. It's not a way to be like, let's kill all these bears. They're like, we're not harvesting enough bears. We need to figure out how. And they do it in Idaho. They do baiting is allowed in Wyoming in certain parts of the state where we don't have grizzly bears, and it's a tool. I mean, and if we got rid of it, we'd have a bunch of guys out there that don't know nothing about bear hunting, spot and stalk, and we'd struggle.
Yeah. Well, and what I want to say to the wider hunting community is that the strategy of the anti-hunting communities is incrementalization.
Yep.
They want to chip at us piece by piece. So right now they're after baiting hounds all over the country, in Maine and different places.
Yep.
All these associations are geared towards defending bear associations, Michigan, Wisconsin.
Yep.
And if we give that to them, then
the next thing will be hounds.
The next thing will
then
be
it's cats.
And then eventually, when my son is 35 years old, they'll be after him for bow hunt. I mean, it's just like we've got nothing left to give the anti-hunting community, and we need the wider. We need anybody who cares about hunting and our way of life in North America needs to help us defend baiting and hounds. That's what I want to say to people.
Ultimately, you hit it on the head, because if we give up one thing, I don't care what it is, we're going to lose it all. And we've stressed it so much. In the bear hunting community, there's decisiveness. There's people that are divided. And we get spot and stalk guys that'll trash on bait guys because they don't spot and stalk hunt and they bait, and that's supposed to be easy. And we get bait guys mad at houndsmen in Idaho because they're rigging off of their baits. I'm like, guys, we are all bear hunters at the end of the day, and they are like loving this because we're divided in our own ranks.
Right.
And we can't be that way. And we've always said we'll support any hunting organization. We do a lot with non-hunting organizations. We do anything we can because we know that we're going to need people to come to bat for us one day as bear hunters. And we support any, Rocky Mountain Elk called us and said we need to do something with this, or the Wild Sheep said, we're all about wildlife. And it's like, we need that approach to bears. Like, all hunters need to look at it and say, I don't hunt bears, but the antis are attacking that. And if we lose that, then it's just going to spiral out of control.
And I think that's the direction we're headed, Joe, as a community. Just in the last 10 years, we've really had social media. Just in the last, really, 5 years, podcasts have come up, and podcasts are such an effective way to communicate, even probably more than the written word, because people can access it, people can hear it. But I feel like we're building to this point where and let's just say bears in general, but specifically I'm talking about black bears because we can hunt them. We're adding value to black bear hunting.
Yes.
On a national level, we're adding value to black bears. People are starting to pay attention. People are starting to go on massive adventures like we've been on out west to go on a do-it-yourself spot and stalk hunt. Guys in Arkansas and Oklahoma are becoming like serious bear hunters. Like, all of a sudden, the street cred of the bear is elevating.
It is.
People are going to start caring about it more, and then we're going to have more of this influx of, wow, we got to defend this if we love it, just like they did with sheep, just like they did with elk. Now, for their problems where they didn't have them, they didn't have the habitat. Our problem is not habitat. Whatever's happening in North America ecologically has been extremely beneficial to black bears.
We've got them in Iowa now. I mean, habitat I don't think is an issue.
So it's like
adaptable.
We've got this ripe resource,
Yep.
and we need people to step up to bat. And I mean, my hat right here, Joe, says bear hunter.
Yep.
I mean, we're trying to build this thing of an identity. I'm a bear hunter.
We need that.
I'm a bear hunter.
Basically what you're saying is we need to create advocates. We need hunter advocates out there, and there hasn't been a lot for bear hunting. As bear hunting gets more popular, it's a double-edged sword. As bear hunting becomes more popular, you got guys that don't like it because now all of a sudden I have this same drainage I would bear hunt in, but at the same token, we now have more people that'll fight the fight for us, and we need to. And we're still so far behind what a lot of these groups are. We got to keep building that out, and that's why it's so important to create advocates for hunting bears. And like I said, bear hunting's popularity has exploded.
Yeah.
And we're kind of on the front of that right now, and we're like, we need to build that out because the more people that buy bear tags are advocates for bear hunting, and that's what we need. That's our defense mechanism right now.
It really doesn't. And, talking to you, it's like this idea has grown just even as we're talking, but it almost doesn't make sense that the icon of North American wilderness, the bear, has not been elevated to this high position of cultural significance in the hunting community. Because the same thing that you experienced here is what I experienced in Arkansas, that we had a world-class resource and people just didn't really care about it.
They don't care.
But that's changing.
It is.
It changes when people like us step up and say, wait a minute, this is awesome. The foundations of our North American hunting culture were built on bear hunters. I mean, I use that phrase a lot, and I didn't make it up. I read it somewhere. Bears, the icon of North American wilderness. And so many of the patriarchs of the North American hunting that we know identified themselves as bear hunters, and specifically I'm talking about Teddy Roosevelt and Daniel Boone, among many others. They identified themselves as bear hunters. Boone, I think, killed 155 bears one winter. And
you were a bad dude if you bear hunted back in the days. You were a man's man.
That's right.
And I see pictures of, Roosevelt and Buffalo Bill Cody at their hunting lodge up here at Pahaska from the old days, black and white pictures, and they got sheep and elk and stuff and 2 bears and like that. It's been going on forever.
In Arkansas, I read some literature one time, and one author said that it was a status symbol back in the 1800s to have a big bear drying on your barn.
Heck yeah!
I mean, it was like man, that and it was deeper than just like ego. He killed a big bear, but if you killed a big bear back in 1837, man, you had enough lard for the winter.
Yeah,
you had enough meat for the winter.
You had warmth with the rug.
You had a heck of a rug that you could either sell or keep. I mean, like. It was a status symbol. It was like having a Porsche parked in front of your house.
It's a big deal.
But that's the, and I think what I've kind of discovered, and I think it's maybe interesting that I'm from Arkansas, a place that people nationally wouldn't know as a bear state.
No.
But it's kind of cool because Arkansas was once known as the bear state, but more importantly than that, from what we're trying to do from a media perspective is, we just came back from Montana and had an incredible world-class do-it-yourself adventure in the backcountry of Montana.
Yep.
And killed a nice bear.
Yep.
And, this is like a totally new experience for me.
Yeah.
Even though, I've done it several times now.
Yep.
But if you look at my whole life, I did not grow up doing that kind of hunting.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's the bear encompasses such a massive range.
Yep.
All these different methods of hunting. And it's almost like I feel like, a guy just coming out here and just discovering this incredible world.
And
that's what you grew up doing.
Yeah.
But,
and what's funny to me is we talk about all the opportunities for bear hunters. In North America, down to Mexico, there's bears. There's bears
There are
everywhere.
black bears in old Mexico.
Yep. I look at a group like the Wild Sheep Foundation, how successful they are. They've built that organization with hunters that may never hunt a wild sheep.
Wow.
They spend most of their money on wild sheep. They spend a lot of money going to wild sheep, which wild sheep are very, how do I want to say this? They're susceptible to disease. They're a fragile species, and we got to do a lot to protect them. And I don't discredit what they're doing. They've done an amazing job, and I hope one day I can. But people will spend erroneous amounts of money. I shouldn't say erroneous. They'll spend a lot of money. I'm going to get in trouble here. They'll spend a lot of money for a foundation for sheep, and it's a species they may never get to hunt in their life.
Right.
Meanwhile, we have bears that you can buy tags for over the counter.
Yeah.
And people, I think, take that for granted. I think if bears were so obscure and so limited in opportunity, we would maybe be in a different conversation right now. We would be talking about something like the Wild Sheep does, and they're like, we have a bunch of people that really want to hunt sheep, so they're going to spend the money to ensure that there's a future for sheep. We don't have a problem for the future of bears, really.
Yeah.
So people take for granted, like, if we didn't have a lot
That's
of
a really
bears,
good perspective. I like it.
maybe people would be a little bit more in tune with bear hunting and bears and be like, hey, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to make sure there's
we're
bears.
in the glory. What you're describing is the good old days of bear hunting. So let's flip the equation, and all of a sudden the bear becomes a desirable game species for people to hunt, advocate for, and care about.
Yep.
Well, guess what? There's enormous amounts of opportunity.
Tons.
Any direction you drive.
Yep.
So it's like we're in the glory years.
Yep.
You take it back to your analogy of the sheep.
Yep.
Imagine if you could buy over-the-counter sheep tag in 20 states.
Wouldn't be a big deal.
It wouldn't be. They weren't naturally in that many, but
it wouldn't be that big of a deal. The Wild Sheep Foundation as a foundation wouldn't probably be as successful as they are. And
right.
and it's funny to me that it's like when you have a species that's so readily available that you have such a tough time advocating for it and a tough time getting people to be passionate about it.
Yeah.
But you take a species that you may never hunt in your life, and you're the biggest fan of that because you may never get to do it. You really want to one day. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's incredible stuff. Incredible stuff. Hey, tell us a bear story. Have you've encountered grizzlies?
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes.
What's it? Hunting in Montana where we were at, there was certainly possibility.
I was going to ask you because there's surely some grizzly bears in that country where you guys were.
We were prepared. We had bear spray and pistols.
Good.
We were totally prepared to be in real bear country.
Yeah.
But there's just not that many up there right where we were. We talked to people, and they're like, there's the odd grizz that comes through here, but it's certainly not like here. Like if we were hunting black bears right out here, you'd be in. It's
like over here if I go hunting, spot and stock hunting, because we can't bait over here where the grizzlies are. So we spot and stock hunt over here. And it's literally like if I go out, I might, for every 6 grizz, maybe see 1 black bear.
I'll be darned.
And it's
the black bears don't want to be where the grizz are?
Yeah, and that's a big concern of ours has been what is this population of grizzly bears done to our black bear population? You put an apex predator on the landscape that they're fighting for the same food source as a black bear, who's obviously not the same size and not as aggressive in nature. Yes. How well are they doing? And so that's something that we've talked to. I've asked the department a lot about, and there's just not a lot of information yet. Yeah. So hopefully, maybe one day we can understand
that. You can't imagine that they're winning.
No, and there's a lot of black bears over here, but you tend to see them move around more in the daytime, while the grizzly bears are moving more in the morning and at night. And I think you have to change your tactics. But, the grizzly bears around here, I don't have as many stories while black bear hunting as I do just deer and elk hunting. Yeah. And just some fascinating encounters as far as, like having to have guns drawn on bears being so close. And I've been lucky enough not to have one charge me. I've had them next to my tent in backcountry hunting, and you can hear them breathe, and they're trying to get your deer meat out of your cache, and
wow.
There's a lot of stories of guys losing their animals to grizzly bears, after the kill, and then I've been lucky. It's never happened to me, but I know if I spend enough time over there, it will, and I've seen them up close, really close, and I walk in the dark and I hunt on foot a lot, and so it's just a matter of time, but you got to be super vigilant. I mean, like,
carry bear spray on your chest?
I carry a gun underneath my bino harness, and then I carry my bear spray on my hip, on my pack belt. Okay. So I always have two, and I've never known, I've actually had more scary encounters with black bears than I have grizzly bears.
Is that right?
But I've seen tons of grizzly bears, but most of them I've seen at a distance, or I've seen them to where I'm like,
you have time.
I have time. Like last year we were deer hunting, and we were in an area we'd shot a deer the week before. So, automatically that's like, that carcass is like going to probably have a bear by there. And we've seen bears in that drainage a bunch. We knew an outfitter had been hunting the other drainage right next to it and shot some deer the day before. And so we were walking up, and there comes a Y to go in which drainage, and we picked the one on the right where the outfitter had been and seen a bunch of crows and stuff, and we wanted to push farther back in there, and it was just kind of like, all right, let's think about this. There's 2 carcasses at least up there from deer, and this is the prime time for grizzlies to be out, scavenging these carcasses. Let's just be smart and turn around, So you have to manage the risk versus reward a lot, I think, in this country, and like be smart. But, they're there, and they're just aggressive, and they're not afraid of people, which is a problem. I mean, they don't run like most black bears would. When you see them, I've seen little ones do it, but I've seen big ones just stare you down and just walk. You like, dude,
just keep doing their thing.
You're in my world, and you better know that.
Let me ask you a question. What does Joe Kondelis pull when he sees a charging bear?
That's such a great question.
Or the spray?
I've asked myself
both.
A million times. I wish I could do both with my rifle, three-handed. I've asked myself so many times. You go through the scenario in your head, because I think if you don't, you're being ill-prepared.
Yeah.
You have to understand what's going to happen and what could happen. And that's a crazy thing to think about every day when you go out hunting. Is like, I could get whacked.
It, doesn't it?
It does. It makes it way more real.
Yeah.
Being out there and knowing that, like, at any minute you could come around a corner in your headlamp and there'd be a sow with 2 cubs on that same trail, and you're done.
Yeah.
And most attacks happen under 5 seconds. So that's what you got. And you got to make that decision in your head, and there's no way to prepare for that. So I think going over the scenario in your head, and in my mind, I carry bear spray because they've proven they say it's successful in mitigating conflict. But like, to me, it just seems like I'm grabbing my pistol.
Okay.
Now, is that the right thing to do? And I don't know. Bear spray becomes ineffective in the cold, wet, really cold, if it's windy. We're in Wyoming. It's always windy. I mean, it's always windy out here. So if you got a gust going sideways and you deploy your bear spray and it just blows, or she just gets you're getting it. Yeah. So I don't know. For me, like, in my pistol, I don't know why. I just think that I'll grab for that. The one time up there 2 years ago, we had a bear come up off a carcass and was real curious. Didn't charge, but it came up to us, and I had my rifle down, but I had time. I don't know. I think I would grab my pistol, but
what my philosophy has been carry bear spray and pistol, which is what we did in Montana. And if you have time and feel like you can mitigate the situation with bear spray,
yeah.
obviously you pull the
That's
bear spray.
The one.
So if you're at your camp and you see a grizz 80 yards away and you're like, oh crap, you pull out the bear spray and you're ready.
Yep.
But I feel like in the heat of the moment,
you're grabbing your pistol.
Yeah.
Your life and death at that point.
If you come around the corner, there's a bear, you're grabbing the pistol.
Yep. Your life and death. And I think that's what I carry both. I think for that reason, if you see one and you're like, okay, we might have a problem here, I'm ready. I got my bear spray off. My gun is a backup. But the old joke around here is most guys carry both, the bear spray to prevent its charge and then the gun to end your life when you've been mauled and you're going to die out in the woods, to ease your suffering. But I've been encouraged to see a lot more people that come out, because there's a lot of people that'll come out here hunting that have no knowledge, or they just refuse to think it's real. Non-residents come out here deer hunting and they're gallivanting around, no bear spray, no pistol, and they're just like, what? And I'm like, dude, do you know where you're hunting? Do some research.
Wow.
And so I've been encouraged to see a lot more people, and we've always tell people, like, get bear spray, and if you do carry a pistol, know how to use it. Because you could carry a pistol all you want. If you can't shoot it, you're not going to do any good. You just as well throw it at them and hope it hits them square in between the eyes, and then it's just going to make them more mad. So, and don't carry a pistol. I carry a 10.
Yeah, that's what I carry.
I've just been
Glock.
It's a Kimber 10.
Okay.
I've just been more doing a lot of research. 45 is okay, but I think you want something like a 10 for the stopping power.
That's exactly what I carry.
Yeah, and I carry it a lot of times when I'm baiting or if I'm just bear hunting.
Hey, what was your harrowing situation with a black bear?
Well, I've had them. We outside of Missoula years and years ago. I shot a black bear and we couldn't find it, so we were stalking it, following the blood trail, and it was down in this choked draw. And I'll never forget this, but I was standing next to my buddy. We were about 10 yards apart, and I hit that bear. I was shooting down off of this ridge, and the bear was walking. I tried to hit him right here, and I hit him in the face. And so he's walking and he's bleeding all over the place, and then he bedded down, and we walked right up on that thing, and it stood up on its hind legs, and it was like going to come at my buddy. And he's trained pistol guy, and like he pulled it out and it was just like he couldn't even, just a black bear, couldn't even get it to, the bear turned around, wheeled off, ran up the hill, and we shot it, but it was just like that quick, and so but I've had them climb tree stands, and I've had them woofing at me. I had a sow and 2 cubs. The sow put the run on me in the big hole, southwest Montana. Spotted this bear a long ways off, and that's all we could see was that one bear. So we make a run on it, and we got in the timber, and we're sneaking up, and I hear the claws going up a tree, and I'm like, oh, I climbed the tree, and I just turned around to my right, and she's woofing at me, coming. She stops, and I'm like, whoa. So I figured the cubs had climbed the tree, and so we turned around and walked back, and then she kind of came back down the hill to make sure we weren't going to stick around, and we got a look, and she had 2 cubs climb up the tree. I've had stuff like that, and I haven't had them, around here. I see all those videos, and I've hunted Canada where you got those bears that won't leave your bait.
Right, that are just...
We don't get that around here.
No.
They won't... They're so nervous around people around here a lot of times, but I have had them... when you're in the stand, or if they're pretty good with you, sniff pretty hard, or, chomp or woof. I had a bear do that to me last year, but I think it was more like, dude, I know you're there, but it's still like,
unnerving.
Yeah. So more like that. And but I've been very fortunate, and knock on wood, I haven't had an issue with the grizzly bear, but gosh, I could tell you 50 million stories of close friends and people around here that have, and it happens every year. We get guys getting mauled, and it's not just hunters, it's hikers and everything else. And it's just, you can do everything right that you can think of, and it can still happen to you. But we just have so many, and it's
just a chance you take inside grizzly country.
You're fighting the odds. Anymore, and it's changed some of my elk hunting tactics. Like, I can't backpack hunt. I love to backpack hunt. I can't backpack hunt elk in some of these areas, because if I get an elk down in a grizzly area, there's a good chance I can't get that elk out by myself, 5-6 miles in one trip. So I'm going to have to make multiple trips. And there's just a good chance on that next trip back, and I don't have horses, that there's going to be a bear on the carcass. So it's like, it's crazy to think that one animal can change what you do, but and I never thought it would, but it does. It does.
I hear you.
It does. And they're remarkable to see out in the wild. I had a mountain goat permit for the wilderness up here right on the edge of Yellowstone Park. And my best friend came down and hunted with me, and he's from southwest Montana. He's like, I've never seen a grizzly in the wild. I was like, well, we were hunting behind this thing called the Bear Gate. It's a place where they drop a lot of the bears that they have to relocate because you can bring a culvert trap in there.
Okay.
And then the gate closes until July, and then in July to September it's open. It's a beautiful bear habitat, big peaks. It's gorgeous, right on the park border. And I said, well, bud, you're going to see some grizzly bears. And I said, if we don't have a close encounter, I'll be shocked. Well, we hunted in there for 7 days and didn't see one grizzly bear. He's like, dude, I hear all these stories. And I'm like, lucky. I don't even know how happy I am and how lucky I feel. He's like, I just wanted to see one far away. And I was like, well, but I could honestly, you could drive up to North Fork today and probably see one.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Wow. That is incredible. Well, hey, this has been a super good conversation.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts?
No, just keep up the good work, man. We need what you're doing out there. And if anyone's hunting in the West, I field a lot of calls for guys trying to figure out how to bear hunt, like I said, that's what we're here for. We're not only a group out there building fences and keeping bears out of trouble. We're there for the bear hunter or the prospective bear hunter that wants to learn or has questions. Yeah. And, that's what we're here for. And when you pick up the number, you get on our website, you call me or you email me personally. And so we're really hands-on that way, and just love to talk. And I've met so many people doing this that it's been truly a pleasure. So, and finally get to meet you in person. It's been great.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it worked out today. And, hey, I'm going to say the exact same thing back to you.
Yeah.
Keep doing what you're doing.
I will.
Man, for real, I got a lot of respect for what you guys are doing. And I think it's really just the beginning. And I mean, you see, I just really believe that as the status of the big game animal, the bear, continues to elevate, that there's going to be more and more emphasis put on conservation and advocacy for bear hunting. And you guys are the thing in the West right now. We're hoping to grow enough to where we're really effective in being that voice for bears and bear hunters in the West, to where it's like we're the go-to. And I think in 20 years, you and I are going to sit down and just be like thankful we did what we did, even though a lot of it was a struggle. I think we're doing the right thing for future generations, and that's important to me. Yeah, right on, man. Well,
thanks, boys.
Yes.
That was great.
Hey, I didn't even introduce to us. I got Colby
Moorhead. We got to start over.
Couldn't get a word in edgewise I was playing.
No, Colby just keeps me on track. Colby, anything else we need to cover here?
I mean, I guess the only thing I was thinking about is whenever you're thinking about different types of hunting, you just have to look for the challenges that group does. So, I mean, my first bear hunt was last year, and it was on a baited hunt with an outfitter. And on the last,
I saw a picture of that bear too, by the way. That's awesome.
It was good. But on the last day, there wasn't I wasn't on a hunt, so I went and I actually ran the line with the outfitter and helped bait. And man, I was dying out there. It was a lot of work, even though he had a 4-wheeler and could get to him.
Yeah. There's a lot of misconceptions about bait hunting, and I don't have to tell you because you do a lot of it, and I put in a lot of work, a lot of time, and a lot of money to do it. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to, we had an event down in Rock Springs, and I'll make this short. We had an event down in Rock Springs, and they all bait hunt down there, and they're like, man, I'd love to go spot and stock hunt in Montana, this one couple. And I was like, well, if you do want to go, I can point you in some areas. And so I was talking to her on the phone the other day, and she's like, I don't need to do this with bait. I don't need to do this. She's like, holy crap. Spot and stock hunting sounds so much easier than bait hunting. And I'm like, it's not as easy to find them, but I said they all have their challenges. And I said bait hunting is time consuming and it's a lot of work if you're going to do it right. Houndsmen have other challenges. They got the amount of money they put into their dogs
365 days
all year round
breeding,
just to hunt a few months out of the year. So every one of them has their challenges, like you said. And I think it's key to explain that to people. Like people have never bait hunted, like, I would love to take you and so you can understand what it is, just because you put bait out there doesn't mean you're going to shoot a bear. I mean, I wish it was that easy.
Yeah. That's awesome that you said that. Now, I have a thing that I say in private, and I'll make it public here. I had a spot and stock guy giving me a hard time about bait and bear. I mean, a friend. Totally. We were just ribbing each other. And he was talking about how easy it would be to hunt bear over bait. And I said, wait a minute. You're telling me that you just wake up in the morning on the day you decide you're going to hunt and strut out to some hilltop glass a bear from a long ways away that doesn't know he's being hunted and walk over to him and shoot him from 200 yards. And I'm like, you're telling me that sounds easy to me. You know,
yeah.
It was a joke. It was a joke.
Yeah.
It's just like, you're hunting an animal that doesn't even know he's been hunted? Come on, man. That's not even fair chase. You know, it's a joke.
I always say this. I have a joke, too. I said, well, feeding bears is easy because they're going to eat. But killing them on bait is a totally different story.
Right.
I don't care how dialed in you are. And I've been humbled. Just about the time I think I got bears figured out, I get a year where I'm just like, what am I doing? You know, they just totally will humble you. And it's like, that's why I love them so much, and their individual qualities. And every bear, they're like people. Every bear is different. And some days they're in good moods, and some days they're in crappy moods. And a cool thing about baiting, that I grew up spot and stock hunting, and it's my passion. I love it. But I never got to really observe and be around bears like I do now baiting.
There's no other hunt for North American big game that you get to interact as closely with an animal for as long a period of time as a baited black bear hunt.
And it'll change your view and your respect level for bears when you get to sit there. I mean, I was in Alberta hunting, and it got dark, and, you know, in Canada, and I did a similar thing. I brought my own four-wheeler up, and I ran baits, and I was like, you're not, and I was up there for like 10 days, and I hunted this one bait for this whopper bear they had on camera, and I sat the last day, I sat from morning until dark and didn't leave there, and that dumb thing never came in. But that like 10 other bears came in, and by it got dark, it was like 11 or 12. And I was like, well, I'm going to walk down to my four-wheeler. It's dark, and this bait's like 7 yards away, and there's bears. The one sow came up the dang tree, and it was just western in there, and I loved every second of it. But I'll never forget, as long as I live, and I get chills talking about it, they baited with a lot of beef and meat scraps up there, and you can hear those things down there snapping bones.
Yeah.
And these aren't even whopper bears, you know, 5-footers. They're just snapping bones and crunching, and you had to crawl down the stand. The barrel's here, like right across from it, and you had to kind of go in between the stand and the barrel at like 8 yards to get out of there. And I'm like, here we go, man.
Here
you know,
we go.
what a way to feel alive. But yeah, but baiting has made it to where I can really pay attention to bears. And I don't know how many years I've not shot bears, and I've just sat there for nights and just watched them and took pictures and just loved being that close and just seeing them. And gosh, their mannerisms, they're amazing. I can talk about them forever.
Yeah, that baited hunt is what gave me that appreciation for bears, because they just, every single one had a different characteristic or mannerisms or the way that they acted. So it was just like knowing that they have personality. Like the spot and stock, spoiler alert, it kicked my butt.
Well, you went from Arkansas to Montana.
Yeah, it's just a whole different style of challenge.
It is.
Yeah. It's just a different style.
They all offer their own challenges, and not one's worse than the other or better than the other. They're all awesome, and I've yet to do a hound hunt. That is I was going to try and do one this year, and I got that grizzly tag, so that went on the schneid. So I've got to get behind hounds chasing bears one of these days. Whether I take one or not, I just want to do it. I've chased cats with dogs, but I want to do a bear one so bad because I want to experience it all, and I know that's not going to be easy either. I just love it.
Just a whole different challenge. Every one of them. That's what's so cool about it, all these different challenges. Well, hey, we better wrap it up here.
Yeah.
Thanks a bunch, Joe.
Thank you guys.
Good to be here, and keep the wild places wild, because that's where the bears live.
We will.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live, headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, The Egyptian in Boise, May 1. The Wilma Theater in Missoula, May 2. The Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington, May 4. Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon, and May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.